It all started with the Big Bang. No, not the Big Bang with GD and his apples. No, not that one. Let's fast forward to my mother and my father. See, although my dad was alive, he really wasn't around for me much. So, he wasn't really in my life. But my mom had me and raised me as a single mother. And it was kind of hilarious because she's Haitian and I came out as this white-looking kid. The doctors were like, what the heck? Anyway, I hated preschool. Hated that place so much. But I was the cool rebel every kid wanted to be friends with. But in all actuality, I was just sad. I didn't want my mom to go. I'll never forget when my preschool teacher would be like, let's all sing a song. And I would just sit there and say, no. And then I'd go to my cubby, take out a container of Cheerios, and eat that thing like a boss. As I grew up, my grandfather introduced me to video games. And boy, I loved video games. I mean PlayStation, PlayStation 2, GameCube, everything. And that's how I grew up to be a gamer girl. I just loved video games. And then I began elementary school, where I was pretty competitive in sports and pretty cool, I guess, since everyone wanted to be my friend still. But I was a scaredy cat. I hated bugs. I used to scream whenever I saw one and run away. My teachers hated that. And then there was this one kid named Rocco. He was my knight in shining armor. He protected me from all those little bugs. We're still best friends 13 years later, and I don't think we're leaving each other's lives anytime soon. I also freaked out this other girl. I mean, became friends with this other girl at a tennis after school program, and then a new kid came to my class. She was from South Korea, and she just came here to learn English. I was fascinated by her. I thought she was really pretty. And then, one day at lunch, I had to sit next to her because there were no other spots. And these boys were making a stupid joke. So I was laughing really hard and leaned on her. She kept staring at me weirdly. I was pretty weird, so I don't mind. In the most broken English I've ever heard, she pointed to a window and said, "Out, play." We became best friends that day. And a year later, she had to go back to Korea. I was devastated. 7 years later, I got a friend request from someone I really didn't recognize. I accepted it, and found out it was her. Even though we hadn't talked in 7 years, we never stopped looking for each other. Friendship never dies. So thank you, Christina. Middle school began, and boy, I hated that. I could not believe it. We had a whole bunch more homework. I lost my friends. It was terrible. And at home, things were getting pretty bad. My grandparents and my mother started fighting a lot. It made me really sad. There was a lot of yelling. So, I began to get upset. My 95 average went down to a 70. And my stomach began to hurt me a lot. It felt like knives stabbing me endlessly, ripping up my stomach. I lost a tremendous amount of weight. I weighed 50 pounds at 11 years old. I looked like a walking skeleton. I went to many doctors and had many tests performed on me. X-rays, colonoscopies, endoscopies. But no one knew what was wrong with me. I began to lose even more weight. It was basically a death sentence. No one could help me. All hope was lost. One day, my mom talked to her friend on the phone, who suggested these pills that would supposedly heal my stomach. And they did. It was a miracle. I began to feel better, and my mom pushed me to make up all the missed work I had. And although it wouldn't help my grade, I did gain the respect of my teachers, which was great. I couldn't eat wheat for 3 years because every time I ate wheat, it upset my stomach. And at home, remember, things weren't well. My mom and I moved out of the apartment and into another house. I didn't talk to my grandparents for about 2 years. And this was also the year I got my first camera. I almost forgot. I used to make movies and everything. I guess I was a little director back then. And I also was learning Photoshop at my middle school, but I sucked. I mean, it was terrible. But 2 years passed, and I won the art fair, first place. I even taught my teachers some things. And 7 years later, I'm making websites and consider myself a pro. And although I was getting better and things were starting to look up for me, my mom and I struggled financially. It was a rough time. One day, my mother and I found this little baby kitten on the street. Its eyes seemed to be infected and stayed closed. I made special food for the kitten and wiped its eyes every day. One day its eyes opened and it meowed the biggest meow I ever heard in my life. I was a little bit frightened. And one day it excreted black feces, meaning that its insides were bleeding, and my mom and I couldn't afford a vet, and even then, she probably wouldn't make it. I made sure the last few days of her life were the best. A week passed by, and she was squirming in pain. I put her on my lap and held her. She licked my hand and passed away. I still cry to this day. And on top of that, my mother and I were struggling with rent, bills, and all that jazz. On the bright side, I got into my favorite high school and into the Da Vinci program, which we basically majored in math and science. We were the top of the top, but then I remembered I hated math and science. 2008 came and I began editing music videos for the first time. And that's also when I met my best friend Erica, the one who would get me into K-pop. But that comes later. Erica and I were as thick as thieves. She was the first friend I ever made online, and she was pretty darn awesome. And this is the year I also got Sabby, the Pekingese that you all consider Spudgy's twin. And I also saw SHINee for the first time in their Love Like Oxygen music video, but I didn't know they were Korean. And then, this is the year I also met my new camera woman. She was awesome. She used to dress so nicely, but she didn't really notice me until about 3 years later. 2009 came, and I got an email from my grandfather saying that my grandmother was in the hospital. We panicked. I saw her for the first time in 2 years, and it looked like the happiness was sucked out of her. She was diagnosed with level 4 pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest. She had about 3 months to live, the doctor said. My mom and I quickly packed and moved into their house so we could take care of my grandmother. It seems like we were always moving. We changed my grandmother's diet into a Korean-based diet, and although my grandmother was pretty skeptical, it did help a lot. And with love, my mom and I kept her around for 2 years longer than expected. 2010 came, and this is when Erica told me about K-pop. I was like, what is K-pop? And I fell in love with K-pop. It was the best thing I've ever heard. I was singing, dancing, and I got into bands like FX, Big Bang, 2NE1, Super Junior, SHINee, T-ara, and more. On August 13, 2011, my grandmother passed away at the hospital. It wasn't very sudden, but it still had a great effect on my grandfather, my mother, and I. I felt extremely bad, because over the past year, I had distanced myself from her. She hadn't said I loved you to me in a long time, but I knew I was the sunshine in her life. She didn't even say goodbye to me. Nevertheless, I felt super bad. I still miss her to this day. I'm even crying about it right now as I'm drawing, but that's okay. I know she's in a better place now. This was also the year I attended SM Town, New York City, and boy, what a great experience it was. It was amazing to see they sold out of Madison Square Garden, and my mom, being awesome, let me stay near their hotel until 3 a.m. just so I could see Donghae. But when Donghae appeared, fans came and pushed and punched me to the ground so they could get a closer look. They were holding up big signs, and I was struggling to get up. I cried a lot, because I had waited just for him. Luckily, I was friends with the security guard, and the security guards let me stand near the door, so any idol that came up could see me. First, it was Yeonhyuk from Super Junior, and he waved to me. And then it was Kihyun, and he looked very sad, like he was asking if you were alright. Thank you very much. I'm okay. 2012 came, and that's when I opened up this YouTube channel. January 18th, 2012. Conveniently my camera woman's birthday. Posted my first video, K-pop fangirl problems, part 1. Oh, I don't know why you guys still watch it. I was such an awkward pickle back then. Anyway. I posted only about 2 vids and didn't even bother checking my account for months. and one day I decided to check it. It went from 200 views to 5,000 in one night, and it was big in Korea. My sub count grew, and I was super amazed and thankful. And I shot a lot of films near my school. I was known as the future director by my teachers and my friends. And I was a part of the theater group at my school. I was one of the originals. I really wonder how we did not get in trouble for all our comedy shows. They were risque. And I also made an anti-bullying video for my friend. It was shown to over 4,000 students. And I got into the college of my dreams and ended high school with a 96.8 average. Amazing. And I scored in the top 27% of my school. And this was the year I met an awesome guy. He was a waiter at a Korean restaurant, and he made a difference in my life. I used to be a very awkward 17-year-old girl who looked like she was 13. And I still look pretty young, but trust me, I look way more mature than I did back then when he met me. And that's all thanks to him. He made me feel special. And he also looked like rain. Ooh, he was very handsome. Anyway, thank you, Oppa. I miss you. And I hope you're doing well in college. You made a big difference in my life. And this is also the year I went to KCON in California, where I met Eat Your Kimchi, Simon and Martina. It was a dream come true. And I also got my first job as a teacher, teaching drama to young students. But I left because it was getting super stressful. And I know my students will be okay. And now it's 2013, where I've reached over 1,800 subscribers and have a 4.0 GPA in college. I'm staying strong and staying happy. I do what I love. And now I weigh 100 pounds. I had to cross many mountains, but it's okay. Made me who I am. And I thank my mom, my oppa, Rocco, Angie, Erica, Ali, Aisha, Curry, and more. And most importantly, my subscribers. Thank you guys. Without you, I wouldn't be here. And that's my story. Well, for now anyway. There's still more to write. I guess we'll see what happens. I love you.